So, greetings and welcome everyone to this very first episode of PCC GYS webinar series on networking, communications, and soft skills. Communication, I believe, is the foremost step to build any relationship when it comes to your personal as well as your professional life. And indeed, it is an honor and privilege for all of us to learn from such a diversified set of speakers through this series. Much before we actually get started with this interactive session, I would like to give you a brief overview about Punjabi Chamber of Commerce and its wings through this short video and presentation.
Punjabi Chamber was formed to unite the global Indian Punjabi community.
Just having access to professionals across the world on a more professional as well as a personal note is the biggest value that I have seen in PCC.
It brings all Punjabi brothers together and gives all the business people a bigger and a better platform.
Privileged to have this opportunity to mentor the younger generation coming into the business world.
I'm really excited to use the Mentor Connect program offered by the Punjabi Chamber of Commerce.
Great. Thank you so much, Aarti, for playing this video. Now, yes, let me just cover a few pointers through this brief presentation here. So, the Punjabi Chamber of Commerce is a non-profit organization headquartered in USA. We were established with the vision of facilitating global and local business communities with a network forum wherein they can build new relationships based on mutual reciprocity. We also strive to provide our member base with a two-pronged approach, which is qualitative and quantitative. We have a strict no religion, no politics policy in place, and we truly believe in diversity and inclusion. Now, talking about our core positioning and ethos on which all our activities and initiatives are built, uh, we have three core mantras that are capital building, capacity building, and community building. Capital building through commerce and cooperation, capacity building through community and communications, and community building through culture and creativity. Talking about the two major wings of PCC as GYS and PCF, Global Youth Squad is our youth wing, and the whole objective of creating this wing is to create a legacy for the next generation to grow, build, and succeed. And to mention it here, this particular series is purely created by GYS to help the youth fraternity out there and to give back to the youth fraternity. Punjabi Chamber of Foundation is our charitable wing, and we generally sort of focus on the give back aspect through this particular wing. And we tend to curate all those CSR activities through this particular wing. Please join me in welcoming today's guest speaker, Indi Samra. Uh, we always count on him whenever we wish to get some new ideas, we wish to get some guidance to go forward. So here's a brief description about him. Based out of New Jersey, Indi is the board member and co-chair of PCC New Jersey chapter. He also chairs the PCC Youth Committee. He has always been very proactive about creating awareness about scholarship programs and introducing certain initiatives aimed at mentoring the future generations. Being a youth icon himself, he believes in motivating the younger generation by recognizing them for each little achievement that they are entitled with. In his professional capacity, he is private wealth advisor and financial market commentator with Samra Wealth Management. A very warm welcome, Indi. We would love to hear from you now.
Thank you very much. And good morning, everybody from New Jersey. Now, a couple of things before we get started here. My name is Indi, not Mr. Indi. The second thing is I've been allocated, I think, 45 minutes to go ahead and talk to you today. If I had to listen to me speak for 45 minutes, I would put myself to sleep. So my goal today is to really ensure that you're walking away with qualitative value that you can actually go ahead and put to work. And when I think about value, I think about my family and a conversation I have with my daughter. About a year ago, I asked my 4-year-old daughter, Sophia, Sophia, what is the most precious thing in the world? And she said, it's love. I said, Sophia, it is not love. It's actually time, because without time, there is nothing. And as you go ahead and start to network, as your networking journey continues, the way that you invest your time is going to go ahead and change. It's important to know that for where you are right now, if you're tuned in, you're most likely light years ahead of where I was at your age. When I was in college, I did not understand the importance of networking, the importance of having a mentor. I see people joining, and somebody told me it was rude not to acknowledge everybody. So hello, everybody, if you just joined. I did not understand the importance of networking, having a mentor, or actually doing internships. The two things that I had that really worked for me, one, unfortunately, my parents are blue-collar workers. They weren't able to go ahead and provide me with the educational background, with some of the soft skills. But the one thing they passed down to me was a moral compass. And that moral compass points in the right direction 100% of the time. And I'll come back to that a little bit later. The second thing that really worked for me was something that I used to get into a lot of trouble in school for. I was never a good student, not like most of you. I didn't perform very well up and through high school. And my parents would go to these parent-teacher conferences. They would speak to the teachers. And there was always two things. One, Indi is nice and respectful, and the second thing is we think Indi's smart, but he just talks in class. About a year or so ago, I had a conversation with my mother over the phone. I said, Mom, do you remember when the teachers would tell you that Indi was just talking too much in class? Well, that's a soft skill. You can't teach that. So today I'm going to try and teach you the soft skill of networking, or at least sharing my story with you, what's worked for me, some best practices, and hopefully some things that you can go ahead and start to implement straight away. So I graduated college without any internships. I went on to do my MBA. I didn't have a network. And I came home one day after graduating with my MBA, and I said, Mom, Dad, I'm moving to New York. And my father says, son, if it doesn't work out in New York, you can always come back home. I said, Dad, if it doesn't work out, I will go to Chicago. So I came out to the New York City area, and I didn't know anybody. This is a big problem. It's a big problem because in my field of wealth management, not only do you need to know a lot of people, you need to know people that have money. And I didn't know anybody. So what did I do? This reminds me of a conversation or an interview with Steve Jobs. somebody had asked Steve about 20 years ago, Steve, how was it that Apple computers invented the home personal computer, yet Microsoft has essentially taken over the world? And Steve replied, that's very simple. When Apple came out with a home computer, we concentrated on profitability. What Microsoft did was they concentrated on market share. And this is key for any business, because in this scenario, when they replaced the CEO with Steve Ballmer, Steve Ballmer made the mistake on concentrating on profitability. Apple bought out the iPod and again went for market share. And how does this pertain to networking? Well, that's essentially what networking is. When you consider networking as a business, that there's two scopes here. One is building that market share, and the other is profitability. But in this case, it's not profitability, it's refining for caliber. So I moved to New York or New Jersey, and I started growing my network. I met with everybody. I did not care if you were a florist, if you were a plumber, if you were an investment a banker or an attorney. I wanted to shake your hand. I wanted to get to know you, because to me, this was practice. How do I converse with people? How do I get to know people? What do they want to hear from me? Up until about 7 years ago, I was literally everywhere. And to this day, when people see me at an event, what I hear is, Indy, you're everywhere. I'm not. I'm very selective of where I go ahead and use my time nowadays. If I attend one networking event a month or one meeting a month, I'm perfectly fine with that, because now it's of a much higher caliber. There's a lot of confusion as to what networking actually is. And as I mentioned earlier, and I'll mention this a few times today, that your networking philosophy, your strategy will go ahead and change over time. In my experience, there's two ways that somebody can actually go out there and network. One is very transactional. And what I mean by that is it's people handing out business cards. It's attending one event and hoping to get some sort of business out of it. And there seems to be some confusion here. Verinda, I'm here to help you. Like, this is what I do. I can help you with this. What you're really saying is, I'm here to help myself. I'm here to go ahead and sell my business, sell my service, sell myself. I need a job. I need an internship. That, to me, is very transactional and does not work. I have a very close friend who we started networking together about 7 years ago. One night we attend an event. The following day, he calls me, and I asked, what did you think about the event? His response was, Indy, I didn't get anything out of it. And I'm thinking to myself, get anything out of it? We went to one event. What were you expecting to get out of it? A client? It just doesn't work that way. So that brings me to building relationships, the second part. This is where the real business comes from. This is where the real value is created. And when you think about building relationships, I want for you to think about the most meaningful relationships out there, things like marriage. A strong relationship such as marriage is built on a solid foundation that takes time to build. And you're not going to go to one event, meet one person one time, and all of a sudden have a fruitful relationship. Unlike my friend, Ravi, what I did was I continued going to these events. Not only did I go to the event, I would follow up with folks afterwards. And if this was somebody that I really wanted to meet, I would invite them out for coffee or for lunch and get the time not only to get to know them, but get them to know me as well. And when I talk about that type of networking, that's the kind of networking that you want to do. And again, bringing it back to how this aligns with my career, I set up my company, established it about a little over 6 years ago now. In that 6 years, I have not asked for a single client. Those clients have been referred over to me from my network. When building relationships, it's important that you concentrate on building a dialogue, establishing a dialogue. And this is not just in the conversation, but it's also the way that business flows. you may find yourself in a situation where business, or in this case, opportunities, are flowing in one direction. And that's a monologue. Only one person is deriving the real value there. If it's a dialogue, both people should be deriving that value. So it's important that you listen. It's important that you get to know the other person. What are they looking for? What type of people do they want to connect with? What's important to them? You should be clear with your intentions. Somebody's going to ask, why do you want to meet me? What I do is, I personally, if I go to a networking event, as I mentioned, this has changed over the years. First, I was looking to meet everybody and anybody. Now I look to connect with one or two people that I think that I can be friends with. And this sounds, it almost sounds silly, attending a networking event to make friends. But in my professional experience, going to an event, establishing a relationship of trust, that's the best way to go ahead and to build any kind of a network, because friends look out for one another. So any business relationship that's built on that strong relationship of friendship takes me to where I am today. Have asked for 0 clients in 6 years, and I'm running a thriving business. Now, when networking, there's 2 things that you really need to concentrate on. One is to communicate, and the second is to build trust. When communicating, you attend an event, somebody may ask you, and what you should be thinking to yourself, who are you? What do you want? What value do you have to offer? And you should be practicing this in a way, and I'll come back to this later, that your spiel, your speech is almost identical every single time. When I attend an event and somebody asks me, Indy, what do you do? My response is, first and foremost, I'm a father. I have 2 beautiful daughters, Sophia and Sonia. They are my life. Aside from that, I manage money. Again, I'm looking to connect with people like me that put their family first. Indy, what do you want? I'm looking to tap into your network. And my philosophy to networking is, I'm going to tap into your network and build a relationship with you. Once I've tapped into that network, I'm going to ask you to tap me into another network. I'll build relationships there. Then I'll tap into those networks. And I essentially network like a virus. Once I've built relationships of trust, I'll go into other networks and continue growing that. What value do you have to offer? When I think about where I've come from, it's not just my skill set, it's also the network that I've established over time. Now, when we think about building that relationship of trust, I want for you to think about your personal and professional brand. The photos that you have on social media, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, as well as professionally, LinkedIn, as well as the type of events that you're attending. Who do you associate yourself with? Who do you align your brand with? It's one thing for us to say that givers gain, and I want to go ahead and introduce you to everybody in my network. Make sure that if you're giving a referral to somebody else, connecting somebody with somebody else, that you know the person, there's a relationship of trust established, because the last thing you want is to happen is for somebody to come along and say, Indy, the plumber that you sent in my direction took my money, didn't do the work, and that just reflects poorly on you. Coming back to the point that I mentioned earlier on, the moral compass. About 4 years ago, I had a very close friend. He wasn't my friend at the time, but he reached out to somebody in my network, and he asked, Sandeep, I'm looking to take on a financial advisor. What do you think about Indy? And me and Sandeep, although we're friends, we have not done much business together. Sandeep responded very honestly. I don't have any professional relationships with him, but one thing I can tell you, he's honest. And when people look at you, they look at your brand, your professional, your personal brand. you want for them to have a meaningful experience, a positive experience. And although this is my method of networking, there are other ways of networking as well. I have two friends that have essentially met through networking that came from social media. Gagan Chawla, Director of Finance and Accounting over at Atomic, they're a big venture capital company. He reached out to me on LinkedIn a few years ago, just wanting to be friends. And I thought to myself, what have I got to lose here? Let's, next time I'm in San Francisco, I'm going to go visit Gagan. And now we're very close friends. And Sunny Singh reached out to me on Facebook. Indy, you look like the kind of guy that I want to be friends with. And that is it. He is a cross-country mortgage, also out in California. So my last trip out of California, I visited him, and now I consider him a very close friend. It brings you back. Friends look out for one another. With this philosophy of going out there and shaking as many hands as you can, storing their contact information, you're not going to get the kind of meetings that you want to get early on. You're not going to get the recruiters. You're not going to get the people that have money to invest in your startup. But one thing you will get is you will create a network of people. You'll essentially become what they call a connector. You essentially know somebody of every craft. And before our call started today, Verinda asked me, Indy, you're now doing these happy hours, these networking mixers in New Jersey. How's that worked out? Well, we've had two. From the first one, I've got a prospective client. The second one, somebody asked if we had any commercial developers in the group. And I was able to go ahead and connect this gentleman with the commercial developer, and that's going to go ahead and create business as well. But the other thing that it does, it shows that Indy has a trusted network, and it's creating more business. And that just adds again to my credibility and my brand. Now, a few best practices. Be nice and be respectful. People remember that. Listen as much as you're talking. After you've attended an event, make sure you follow up. If it makes sense, schedule a cup of coffee, get to know the person, and make your intentions clear. I'm looking to go ahead and tap into your network. Those folks that go out there and attempt to sell their networking partner, that's just a closed door. I don't know how things in India work, but here in the United States, people are automatically pre-programmed to say no. You walk into a hardware store, Home Depot on a Sunday, you're specifically looking for something. There's somebody at the door and they will ask you, sir, can I help you find something? Nope, I'm just here to look. I am clearly there on a Sunday to purchase something, but I'm pre-programmed to say no because somebody asked me. Stay away from spicy food, garlic, onions, and do not touch turmeric. If you're going to be attending a networking event, the last thing you want to do is have somebody smell that garlic breath or that onion breath. This is an important one. Hold your networking partners accountable. And what I mean by that is I've had relationships for a long time. And if I believe that this is a dialogue, but it's acting more like a monologue where I'm sending the referrals in one direction, that doesn't add any value to me. I'm going to turn around and say, Verinda, we had a fruitful relationship a year or two ago, and I understand your business, but maybe you don't understand mine. And the reason I say that is because I've sent clients in your direction, I've sent opportunities in your direction, but I've noticed that you haven't sent clients to me, or the clients that you sent are $50,000 clients. That's not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking to do is I'm looking to establish a dialogue. And maybe this is my fault that I did not educate you properly or follow up with you that this is the type of business that we're in. I will now go ahead and re-educate them on what I do and make it very clear that if our relationship continues to be a monologue, that will essentially be the end of our relationship, and I will go ahead and take those referrals and those networking opportunities elsewhere. When I think about the three things that essentially made me successful when it comes to networking. One is I read everything. I've come across many students, especially in finance. When I finish interviewing them, the final question I have is, what was the last book you read? And it's typically something along the lines of investment related, Benjamin Graham, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that's not what I'm looking for. So I follow up that question with, well, what was the last novel or biography you read? And the reason I bring this up is, if you attend a networking event, very rarely is somebody ever going to turn around and ask you, can you go ahead and teach me about options trading or corporate finance, or the specific thing in technology or healthcare? They're looking to have conversations with like-minded people. And for those folks that are just reading books in their space, they run the risk of becoming two-dimensional. You want to show folks that that you actually have some depth to you, that you can carry a conversation. When I go to an event, I guarantee you I have something in common with every single person in the room. It's up to me to go ahead and leverage that. And again, that comes from practice. The second thing that I do very well, and this comes from just good practice, being in a bunch of networking events, having the exact same conversation over and over again, is I read people. When I'm having a conversation with you, my inner monologue is thinking, what is Arti's inner monologue thinking? What is that inside voice thinking? What is she thinking in her head to my response? And to then go ahead and adjust my response to what I believe that person's thinking. I don't read minds, but I'm pretty good at this. Practice is key. And initially, as I mentioned earlier on, very early in your career, you are not going to get to talk to anybody that you really want to talk to. So talk to everybody else. There are plenty of people out. You live in a country that has 1.3 billion people. There are plenty of people out there that want to talk to you. Consider it practice. Good conversations, not so good conversations. But this will definitely help you, especially if you're shy, if you're timid. This will help you build confidence the more people you speak to. It will also help get your name and your brand out there. If you're reluctant about attending an event or coming on a webinar like this, then I do what I do. I didn't know anybody when I first came to New Jersey. I would look in the mirror just like this, and I would practice. Hi, my name's Indy Samra. I'm a private wealth advisor. This is what I do. I even would drive my car and practice on the way to meetings, knowing fine well that I've had this conversation in my head 1,000 times before. So there's very few situations I can go into right now that I'm not prepared for, just because, like a surgeon, like a cardiologist, they've done this surgery 1,000 times before. It's the same procedure. Coming out of the lockdown, there's really limitations to how you've been able to network in the past, over the past 2 years. And from that, I would say leverage social media. Just as I mentioned earlier on, that Sunny did, and Guggen did with me. They met me on Facebook and LinkedIn, and very, very close friends of mine. Utilize social media best you can, but at the same time, be respectful of people's time. Daily, I receive an email or I receive a LinkedIn message. This is who I am. I want to be respectful of your time. This is what I'm looking for. I really appreciate that, but at the same time, you haven't asked me about me. This seems to be the start of creating a monologue and not creating that dialogue. And that's what I have for you today. And if I thought that I could continue just hauling things at you, it would just be a waste of your time. If there's something on this webinar that I've said that you didn't catch, I recommend just watching the webinar again. But Vrinda, we can go ahead and open it up to any questions that folks have.
Yeah. Lots of experiences and lots of minute points that you've covered. Wonderful. We have got many comments from people who are listening us and watching us. So I've got one question, and that's from Dr. Gurpreet. Can you suggest ways to overcome initial no for an answer from people when you approach for networking?
Yeah, this is a great question, Doctor. So I actually had this conversation with my wife yesterday. Um, this is a numbers game. And the more people you meet, not everybody's going to say no. It'll also give you an opportunity to go ahead and refine your craft or your art, because networking really is an art. And as more people say no, initially I used to take this personally. I'm a great guy. I'm a nice guy. I'm very good at what I do. This person doesn't want to meet me. But the more time and stress you place on that, it just doesn't work out. Move on to the next one. If they don't want to meet you, at the back of your mind, you should consider that their loss. I write market commentary, and I used to get very upset when somebody unsubscribed or didn't read my newsletter. So I took a proactive approach. I started cutting people off. I said, okay, if you're not going to read my newsletter, I'm going to stop sending it to you. Now, plenty of people read my newsletter, but in addition to that, it's allowed me to go ahead and flip the script. And this is how things will change in your professional career. As I mentioned very early on, you are not going to go ahead and get the type of meetings that you want with the folks that you want to get them with. You're not going to get the job opportunities, the opportunities in general for investment. But as you continue to grow that network, you'll do essentially what I did. You'll grow a large market share. You'll then start to refine for caliber. And that's where most of your business will come from, or most of your opportunities will come from. But if somebody says no, even if I send out a message to somebody and they don't respond after the second message, I do not waste my time thinking about that person again.
That is so me. And Dinesh has also summarized this as no means next opportunity. So, yeah, that's great. We've got one question from Khushbu. It's very difficult to not to think about what others will think when you will try to make networks. In short, concerned of our very first impression, how to manage that.
Yeah, so I think there's multiple levels that you can think about this on. And if I attend, again, very early in my career, it was all about, Indy, have the right silk tie, the wool suit, the expensive watch, drive the expensive car. And nowadays I could turn up, and I have done. I've turned up to meetings in shorts and a t-shirt, because people are not concentrated. The people that I work with, they're not concerned about what I'm wearing or what I look like. They're more concerned about my character and the insight that I bring to the table. And again, it brings me back to one of those things that I do. I'm extremely well read. I'm up to date on current topics. So even though the conversation may not start off in the right way, that you're not talking about what you want to talk about, you can start those conversations off on anything: current events, Ukraine, changes in the law, until you go ahead and essentially break the ice. From there, you can take that conversation in any direction you want. But as I mentioned earlier today, trying to sell yourself, on that very first meeting, your goal should be to get a follow-up meeting afterwards. Get to know the person.
Great. So we have another question from Amanat. I try and memorize my dialogues before uttering it out, but still many a times I end up fumbling and stammering many a times, which hinders the flow of my speech. May I know any experience from you that if you had the same problem and how it was tackled?
Yeah, so so I'm a private wealth advisor, and in my space, this can become very difficult because you just do so much. But at the same time, how do you now go ahead and communicate that over the person that you're trying to get as a client or as a networking partner? And I remember working for companies like Merrill Lynch, where there was a spiel. Well, I help people get from point A to point B financially. And then you realize that none of that works. And if I went to an event and somebody said, I asked somebody, like, what do you do for a living? I'm a dentist. Oh, that's pretty self-explanatory. Like, what do you do? I'm a computer programmer. Indy, what about you? What do you do? well, I financially help people meet their goals and help get them from point A to point B. It just doesn't make sense. So nowadays, I just simplify it. Folks that I work with, Indy, what do? I manage money. And I would ask for you not to go ahead and actually script it. Have a few bullet points. It reminds me of essentially the conversation that we're having today. I've essentially written out a few bullet points, and that's what we're having this conversation on. If I attempted to go ahead and read verbatim, it's I'm not an actor. This is something that I do. Make sure that when you communicate, that communication is clear. It's passionate. It's about you. It's not about something that you're trying to memorize.
And the way I prepare is that the person on the other end is also a human. He's not going to eat me up when I speak or when I fumble. So yeah.
So
That's my
I'm glad you said that, Arunda, because it reminds me of when we had, we just let go of our intern, but when we had our intern, the very first day on the job, we had him leading 3 calls with investment companies. And he calls me up the day before. He's like, Indy, I'm nervous about tomorrow. I was like, nervous about tomorrow? I was like, why? He's like, I've never done this before. And I thought to myself, I could either go ahead and take things really easy on you and over the next few weeks, prepare you for this. I was like, it doesn't make sense. Let me throw you in at the deep end. It will help you build your confidence. But at the same time, it's important for you to remember that you're going to be telling this person about our company, the kind of clients that we work with, and then turning that script back on them. What kind of value can you add for me and my clients? And I would say that the same thing applies. When doing that with Ronak, it built up his confidence very quickly. He now understands that the person on the other end of the phone is not out to, like you said, like to bite him. So, but yeah, I would overcome that very quickly.
Great. So we have another question from Raj Naren. Can you discuss how networking may differ in various parts of the world?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that the New York City metropolitan area is it's very diverse, and I think it's a great opportunity to network the right way, but also to network the wrong way. And when you think about this area, New York City metropolitan area, time is so valuable to people. It's very difficult to go ahead and get that time. Whereas you go into, let's say the South, Texas, you go to France. I mean, like, people are a lot more relaxed and a lot more willing to go ahead and give you that time. So it kind of brings me back to that same thing, time. One thing I just want to add on to this is when I moved out here, again, I didn't know anybody. And I don't know if you guys have all heard, but I'm the only Punjabi that folks know of that doesn't actually speak Punjabi. And I also lead a chamber of commerce, a Punjabi chamber of commerce. So even though I didn't have a very good Sikh roots or very good Punjabi roots, I connected with my own community. And I would say that regardless of wherever you are, if you have access to somebody from your community, go ahead and leverage that, because at the end of the day, that's what the Punjabi Chamber of Commerce is for. And when I made my trip from California to the New York City area, I didn't know anybody. It would be so much easier if I was able to go ahead and tap into a network earlier. I wouldn't have had to take the scenic route in my career.
That's interesting. We have another question from Meher. How to overcome fear to approach a stranger?
Okay. This question is from Mehik. Okay, so
Meher.
Okay, Mehik. So I saw that question come up, and I've never personally had this issue, but again, I'm going to use our mentee, an intern, Ronak, as a prime example. What I told Ronak was, like, what do you have to gain and what do you have to lose? If you say something wrong, as long as you're not insulting the person, you have absolutely nothing to lose. It comes back down to time, but you potentially have something to gain. And even if that conversation doesn't go on to in the right direction, as we talked about with Dr. Gurpreet earlier on, move on to the next one.
Great. I guess we have also
Brenda,
covered a lot.
let me just
Yeah.
let me just get back to practice. Very early on in my career, I was afraid of saying the wrong thing when it came to any kind of presentation. Even still to this day, I will look in the mirror and just be very critical of myself. How do I look? How do I sound when I'm doing this? And nowadays, you have technology on your side that you can record yourself and replay that until you really feel that you have your presentation down. Then connect with your most critical friends, not your closest friends, your most critical friends, and tell them, look, this is what I'm doing. I would love to go ahead and test my networking pitch on you, my 30 seconds. And if they're your close friends, they're critical, they will go ahead and give you just the best insight.
Perfect. Perfect. So Raman is asking, when I go to abroad, which all difficulties will I face?
Yeah, so I will be honest with you, Raman. We're talking about the difficulties when it comes to networking in a new place. The first difficulty you're going to get is it's a culture shock. And I think about when I moved from, I was born and raised in England, and I moved to Yuba City, California. I didn't know any Indians in Newcastle, England, but all of a sudden I moved to this area and there's just Punjabis everywhere. And I was really uncomfortable amongst my own people. It was culture shock for me. And I think that's the biggest thing. But if you go ahead and attempt to access a local network that you're familiar with, that will go ahead and provide the most value. It's not just, I mean, it's not just our community. When you think about what the Punjabi Chamber of Commerce is attempting to do, if you take a look at the Jewish community, if you take a look at the Gujarati community, and here specifically in New Jersey, the Hispanic community, these are people that look out for their own people. And I want to say I can guarantee you that if you connect with enough people and just have an honest, sincere conversation with them that, look, this is who I am, this is my intentions, and this is a value that I can bring to the table. I'm not going to tap into your network. Who do you think would be a good connect for me?
Yeah, and I feel that moving out of your comfort zone is also something that opens up a lot of opportunities for you. So don't stay in a closed cocoon. Come out of that cocoon and say it aloud. The most that you can do is you can say it wrong, but you can't, harm the other person on the other end. So we have another question from Ruchika. I am a marketing professional. When I network with people from my industry and if they offer me a job opportunity, they keep asking me, if you join our organization, how many clients can you move to us? Do you think is this ethical way of doing business? I have rejected many job opportunities because of this reason. How do I deal with such situation?
Yeah, Ruchika, this is a question in my field that comes up a lot. And I had a colleague at JP Morgan that interviewed with another company, and they asked him that same question, like how many assets or how many clients would you bring with you? And he said 0. He's like, I want to tell you the kind of person that I am and the kind of character that I am. His name is Waleed. Waleed said, if I worked here and brought in clients here and then I left here, how would you feel if I took those clients with me? When I started my own firm, I started with 0 clients. I had clients that had reached out to me from my previous firm, Merrill Lynch, and asked, Indy, are we coming with you? No, I gave you I was very honest with you, and I told you that the team that I was a part of, they had your best interest at heart. They have your best interest at heart. They're good people, and I believe that. My journey is taking me in a different direction, but no, you're with the right people. Because Ruchika, I think you have to think about what it says about your character. If you were to go ahead and take those clients with you, and if somebody is taking the time, opening a position and investing that effort with you, do you really want to work with the kind of people? Do you want to align your professional, your personal brand with a company that wants you to go ahead and do that? And there's expectation for that.
Very nicely answered. Now, Khushbu has a lot many questions. She
Fire away,
wants to know
Khushbu,
the
I have the
difference
time.
between
Sorry, what is the
she
question?
wants to know difference between networking and communication.
So, so within networking, you have to be able to communicate, right? I mean, I don't know how to really differentiate this because I'm not communicating this very clearly now, am I? But when you go out there and network, that your communication is multi-level. What I mean by that is it's not just the way that you appear, but it's the way you present yourself, the way that you can build a dialogue or a monologue with that person. And for somebody that struggles to essentially communicate, I take this back to writing an essay. And again, I wasn't the very best student, but one of the things I remembered was, start with an introduction. This is what I'm going to talk about. Your 3 points, 1, 2, 3, and then offer a conclusion. And when I think about networking, that's or communicating, that's what I'm looking to do. But the idea of growing that network is, as I mentioned earlier on, you want to have your brand established out there. Sorry, I think that's the best I can do. Can we move on to the next question?
Yeah. So Khushbu says that I did make a video while practicing for my presentation, as you are telling, but still I fumbled when I got to deliver that. Now, what should I do to improve this thing?
So this is not something that can be scripted. And when you think about people that do this really well, they just continue to practice, but it's never scripted. You're going to take the 2 or 3 points that you think offer the most value to the person that you're talking to. Again, try to read their inner monologue, what their inner voice, and think about the kind of stuff that they want to hear, the buzzwords, what's going to really click for them. And the chances are you're not going to have the exact same conversation with somebody every single time. Early on in my career, depending on who I was talking to, it was, my name's Indy Samra, I'm a private wealth advisor. We specialize in business retirement plans, life insurance, trust and estate planning. Now, I realized that for me, and actually using this specifically for my business, I'm Indy, I'm a father, and I manage money. People that have money understands what it means to manage money. So that's what for me. I would recommend that you kind of go back to the drawing board, a couple of bullet points, but make sure that it's not scripted, and then just practice it. And then every day, just look in the mirror, just look at yourself, and just again practice it.
And yes, you have to be very clear about your message. You have to understand your message rather than just learning it. So yeah, that's pretty useful. We have a lot many comments here by Dinesh and by Raj Naren. They have been supporting us throughout this session. And yeah, okay, we have no questions, but I saw Sukhveer raising his hands since the start of this session itself. So Sukhveer, if you can unmute yourself and speak. Meanwhile, we have one, yeah, Sukhveer. Okay.
Actually, I did want to mention something. So before, actually, it sounds like he's on. So please fire away the question.
Yeah, we have one question from Priyanka. How to inspire people to buy a particular thing, especially in case of selling business?
Yeah. So again, wrong approach, right? Because that is very transactional. And if you want to do it the right way, again, in my career over the past 6 years, have not asked for a single client. And that's where you want to get yourself to. You don't want to kill yourself in business where if you're attempting to have a transactional relationship, hi Arti, do you have any clients for me today? Like, how would you like to buy this today? Verinda, like this is what I'm selling today. People don't want that. They want to connect with people like themselves. And it brings it back to what I said earlier on. What do you want? You may think at this point early on in your career that you want to go ahead and sell things. You don't. You want to establish a dialogue, a relationship with them. And that relationship, as long as it's done right and respected by both parties, that will become a fruitful relationship.
Superb.
So,
Priyanka
okay,
has
actually,
another
let me just touch a little further on that.
For sure.
So,
For sure.
when I think about early in my career, I used to knock on doors. When I first moved out to this area, I was knocking on doors. I was cold calling strangers, asking them if they wanted to buy a $5,000 municipal bond or a $5,000 mutual fund. And, you know, it's I almost laugh thinking about where my career started and how it's transitioned and how. If I continued knocking on doors and just selling, I wouldn't be to where I am today. But as a result, building these relationships, I've been able to go ahead, and nowadays the conversations are, you know, like it's a couple of $1 million. Like, do you have millions of dollars? Because that's the kind of clientele that we're looking for. The 5, 10, $100,000 client. It's how you transition. So right now, you may think that you want that selling, the transactional relationship. You don't. What you want to do is start building and start learning about the other side. What do they want? Like, how can you also help them?
Yeah, great. So Priyanka has another question I guess that's half answered. What is the role of communication in selling business? That's pretty interconnected with the one we covered, right?
Yeah, so like the same thing applies. So that communication should not be a monologue. It should be a dialogue, and should flow in both directions.
Definitely. I mean, this has been a wonderful session. The start itself of the series has been amazing, very interactive, and we have got very good questions from the audience as well. I hope Indy has been able to answer all of them, and I have been able to announce all of them. So, yeah.
Brenda, before we get off, I do want to just talk about mistakes that people make. Aside from eating the onions and the garlic and touching turmeric,
Yeah.
very early on in my career, I saw a lot of this, and I actually participated in a lot of this where I was going out after work or to networking events and going out for drinks 4 or 5 times a week. And that is essentially not a very healthy, emotionally or physical way to actually go ahead and network. And if you want to make sure that the setting is appropriate. If somebody's having an investment or some sort of important networking meeting with you, like focus on not going out for drinks. If this is important to them, they're going to make the time, and you want to make sure that you have their attention. Even with the Punjabi Chamber of Commerce here in New Jersey, we still struggle with when we ask folks how much quantifiable value have we added to your business, and somebody will turn around and say nothing. I think to myself, well, are you attending events? No. Well, are you attending events? Yes. Walk me through the event. Like, how does this work? If you came in the same car and hung out with your buddies, that's not networking. Networking is getting to connect with somebody, following up, building that relationship. And if you're unable to succinctly communicate what it is that you do for a living and what you're looking for and the people that you're looking to connect with, you need to go ahead and first fix that, rectify that, then come back to me and say, Indy, this is what I do. Now I can connect you with the other folks in my network.
Very beautifully articulated. I mean, this is the whole vision of PCC, not just giving that business, but connecting people all together, connecting the whole community all together across the globe. So yeah, I guess Robin has something to say here.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Virinda. So first of all, thank you very much, Andy sir. It was really a great session. So it was really a great session. Thank you for taking out time for us. We really have good insights from this session. So here are some key points. So things were like go, communicate people with clear intentions, and most important, build trust. And last but not the least, practice, because that's how we learn actually. So with this, I once again expressed my gratitude to each and everyone present here. Thank you for joining in, and we would love to have you in our upcoming sessions also. With this, I request the team to close this session. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Indy. Thank you so very much. If you have that one message for the youth fraternity out there, because I saw you wanted to speak something. Indeed.
So no, so you said that Raj Narind had a question earlier on. Raj
Yes,
Narind is
yes.
one of my closest friends, and if you're going to learn anything from business communication, you're going to be learning it from her in an upcoming seminar. So
Yes,
um,
yes.
I look forward to tuning in on that.
Yeah, we have one session with her as well in this week. Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Indy. Thanks all the attendees who made this session a very interactive and very productive one. We look forward to having all of you in the upcoming episodes as well. Thank you so much.